What do I tell you about those 6 days on the Rainy River? I can tell you that they're more memorable, more sad, more scary than anything that happened to me in Vietnam, by a lot. Vietnam was scary, that's for sure, but it was scary in predictable ways. You know, loud noises, and gunfire, artillery, and gunships, and all the things you know war will be, the war was. It was awful, but you kind of knew it was going to be awful. It wasn't shocking, it was surprising, it was just scary. But those days on the Rainy River, when I was sort of still in control of my own destiny, were a lot more psychologically terrible for me. Because after all, I still had the kind of freedom to do what individuals do, to make their minds up. Do I marry Jill or do I marry Phil or whatever it may be? You know, you make your minds up about things. And I can remember old Elroy teaching me to split wood out behind his main lodge. And I remember my body just sweating, gushing sweat. The faucets had been turned on in my arms and my chest. And I remember old Elroy looking at it and not saying a word, just looking up in the trees and saying, "There's Jesus," looking at an owl up in this tree. He had that kind of laconic way about him. I remember another time at dinner, we ate in his cabin, and I remember vomiting all over his table. The tension was so. Imagine you're 20 years old, leaving your family forever, and your girlfriend, and your life, thinking about going to another country. You'd be vomiting too. But again, old Elroy didn't say much of anything. He cleaned it up and brought over some more walleye and put it in front of me. And after we played some Scrabble. Well, old Elroy was a smart guy. He was no country bumpkin. His place was filled with magazines and newspapers, big piles of them. He knew there was a war on. He knew Canada was right across that river. He knew how old I was. He could put the stuff together. You have to be a genius to know roughly what's going on. And yet in those 6 days, he never once asked me about the obvious. Why the puking? Why the sweat? He stayed silent. The way God will stay silent in our lives, not giving us advice or counsel or telling us what to do, at least not to me. And yet still present, watchful. He was there for me in a way that no other human being I've ever encountered in my life was ever there for me. Just to be there without telling me what to do and what to think, just there. My dreams on the Rainy River were full of hallucinatory stuff. Getting chased through the Canadian woods by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Sergeant Preston images, and searchlights, and barking dogs, and I'm making my way into Canada. Imagining people screaming at me, "You coward, you treasonous sissy." The most outlandish stuff coming at me I'd imagine. I'd imagine my mom and dad sitting in this small town in Worthington, Minnesota, in a Gobbler Cafe, and overhearing somebody talking in the next booth over, some farmer saying to another farmer, "Did you hear what the O'Brien kid did? The sissy went to Canada." And then imagine my mom's eyeballs. They go down at the table, get up at my dad's. Imagine what his eyes would do. This is half dream stuff. It's half my human imagination. I felt trapped. I felt trapped by global politics. I felt trapped by my own conscience and not believing in the war. I felt trapped by my own country.